I read 75 books in 2024, absolutely wild number, and today we're going to be ranking all of them. I was debating doing them like in order, like 75 to number 1, but the problem with that is my opinion changes like every 20 minutes. I posted a video, my reading journal wrap-up spread on my bullet journaling channel, where I did rank them from worst to best, like literally in order. So if you want to go see that video, I'll have it linked down below. However, disclaimer is that order changes every time I look at the spread. Okay, so I have my 5 tiers that I'm gonna go through very quickly. Going from bottom to top, the worst one is Burn It in all caps. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Then I'm so disappointed. Then TBH kind of forgettable. For the nostalgia alone, Past the Vibe Check, Absolute Chef's Kiss, and at the very top I have Inject This Into My Veins. The first book is A Court of Silver Flames. Now this was a reread for me this year. I read this book a couple of years ago, but I never really appreciated Nesta's character, and I really genuinely thought it was quite good. It's not the perfect book. I gave it like 4 stars, I think, but maybe 4.5. It is a little too smutty, but I thought that genuinely like the character development was really awesome. So I would give this probably Past the Vibe Check. Next is All Roads Lead Here. This is a small town romance about a girl who's escaping her past, so she goes to sublet part of, I think it's a garage apartment that this older man owns, and it's a romance between the two of them. It's very slow burn. Obviously, Mariana Zapata is known for that, but this was my first book by her, and once again, this Past the Vibe Check. It was really good, but I don't think I'm gonna go back to it again anytime soon, if that makes sense. Ashes in the Star-Cursed King. Here's the thing. I have to put it in TBH, kind of forgettable. And this is where my ranking for this video will differ from the one from my bullet journal video where I put them in order, because I gave this book 4 stars. So like, it is a good book, but I don't remember anything from it. I just remember there are a lot of like political dinners and a war at the end. Is that bad to say? I don't know, but like, it's a good book. I give it 4 stars. It just has to go down here. Birthday Girl, Past the Vibe Check. This book was so much fun. This is a girl breaks up with her boyfriend and gets with her boyfriend's dad book. I thought it was really actually enjoyable, really funny. Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This was an absolute chef's kiss book. I'm sorry. Is it controversial for the nodding? Yeah. And was that really enjoyable to read about? Not really, no. A little weird for sure, but this was genuinely like, he falls first, he falls hard first. I loved it. It was supposed to be enemies to lovers, but like, he was such a simp, and I love myself a simp. I really do. Binding 13, definitely absolute chef's kiss. This was my least favorite of the 4 books that I read in this series. So the first book was, I think, a 4, maybe 4.5 star for me, but you guys will see that every other book in this series that I've read the first 4 books. The last 3 that I've read were all 5 stars. Butcher and Blackbird, I'm disappointed. Now here's the thing, I gave Butcher and Blackbird 3 stars, so it's not like a terribly rated book, but I wanted so much more from this one. I really did. Everyone hyped this book up so much, but I feel like it was a lot of tell not show. A lot of people love this book, but for me it just was not my favorite. Can I tell you something? Burn this book. Please burn this book. I never want to read it again. This is a book about a girl who meets her favorite audio erotica creator in person, and they fall in love. And just to simplify things, let me just say that his account is called Mac and Please. Yeah, okay. It's going in the bottom tier. Yeah. Next is Clockwork Prince, and this one I think has to go into absolute chef's kiss. Now I gave this book 5 stars. It was so good. I read this book back in junior high, and so I reread it this year just to remind myself, like, did I really like it as much as I did? Because I gave it 5 stars when I originally read it, but turns out it's just as good. If I had to rank all of my 5 stars from this year, it's not at the top, if that makes sense. So it was still really amazing, but it's gonna go into the orange tier because I'm picky. Crow by A. Zevarelli. I'd say, oh, this is hard. I'm going back and forth because the plot is pretty forgettable, but I gave it 4 stars. It's going on TV, it's kind of forgettable. I'm sorry, it is. This book is a really fun mafia romance, and I've read 3 of the books in the series before, and I was rereading the series again this year. I really enjoyed these books. I think they're super fun and really straight to the point, easy mafia romances. However, I don't think it's anything to write home about, if that makes sense. Just because it's lower on this tier doesn't mean it's an awful book. It is 4 stars, but it was forgettable, so it has to go here. Cruel Winter with You, I'd say Past the Vibe Check. This was a high 4-star novella. It was like 75 pages by Ali Hazelwood, just doing her magic, and I thought it was super cute. And I love Christmas novellas that are short. I think I learned that this year, that Christmas books can be fun. They don't have to be like super cringe and hallmarky, but I can't do like too long. It has to be a short snippet of Christmas, and that's it. Done and Dusted by Lila Sage has to go into kind of forgettable. Well, actually, you know what? No. This one passed the vibe check. The second one is kind of forgettable. I'll get back to that later in this video, but Done and Dusted is a cowboy romance. I felt like Luke and Emmy's relationship was definitely predictable, you know, Hallmark cowboy-y, kind of, I don't want to say off-brand Chestnut Springs because that's insulting, but it's very similar to Chestnut Springs by Leslie Silver that I read last year. I was listening to the audiobook, it was a lot of fun, so I enjoyed it, passed the vibe check. I'll put it in the yellow tier. Funny Story by Emily Henry. This one passed the vibe check. I gave this book 4 stars. I thought it was a really good book by Emily Henry. Maybe one of my favorites by her, but I've only read 3 so far, so I can't really like say, you know, what's her best work. Emily Henry often has an element of literary fiction in her romances. It's not just about the love story. I wouldn't say that she's my favorite author ever, but I do enjoy her books. I thought her romance was sweet. Holiday romance for me, forgettable. I'm sorry, it was. This was a 4-star read for me, but kind of a generous 4-star. I'm leaning on 3.5 personally. It's a holiday romance that follows 2 people who every year meet on a plane as they go back to their hometown in Ireland. I thought it was a well-written book for sure, but I feel like it was a little bit too cringe. And once again, I want my holiday romances to be shorter, like my holiday books to be shorter. And this one was like 400 pages. So I got to a point when I was like, all right, let's wrap it up. You know what I'm saying? Hawk definitely passed the vibe check. I enjoyed this book a lot. It's been on my TBR forever, so I'm really glad that I read it finally this year. Next is Little Women, and I'm putting this in for the nostalgia alone. This one I gave 4 stars, so I really enjoyed it. This book I actually used to read a lot when I was a kid, which is kind of crazy because it's like a classic, but I actually have like little drawings in the pages of this book that I found when I was rereading it from when I was a lot younger. And I know I was younger because the art was really bad. So it's kind of funny to see those little pictures in there, but I kept them in for nostalgic reasons. The Dark One. Okay, I'm putting this in I'm So Disappointed, but I'm more disappointed in myself than anything else. Like, this book is exactly what it tells you it's going to be. It's a very short 200-page book, and it's actually 4 books in a series that are all about 200 pages, where it's a reverse harem romance between Peter Pan and Wendy's great-granddaughter, and then, again, reverse harem. So along with Peter Pan, there's also 2 twins and this guy named Van or Vale or something like that. It's a mess. It's a spicy mess with basically 0 plot, but you go into the book knowing that. It's not going to be quality literature when it's a reverse harem retelling of Peter Pan. So I am disappointed in myself, really, for liking these, but I read the whole thing. Keeping 13. For me, I'm gonna put this into absolute chef's kiss. I gave this book 5 stars. I felt like the stakes were higher, the romance was better, like there are more character interactions in this book, so I really liked it. However, I do think that the next 2 books in this series were definitely my favorite, and so because I liked those 2 so much more, even though the last 3 are all 5 stars, I have to put this one into absolute chef's kiss because I think it just gets better from here. Next, we get into the Mind series by St. Abbey. These are all absolute chef's kiss. I'm sorry. The first 2 are here. I don't know where the last one is. I'll bring it up here whenever I find it, but these are very short. They all tell the story of a female serial killer who falls in love with the FBI agent on her case. If you think it sounds good, it's absolutely phenomenal. These are both rereads because I read the entire series last year, so I just reread the first 3 books in the beginning of this year. Very dark, especially the last couple of books. Please watch trigger warnings for these because they're like so dark, but it's really good. So that's that. Speaking of dark romances, I also have Lights Out by Nevessa Allen on here, and this one I'm going to put, I'm back and forth between absolute chef's kiss and pass the vibe check. I'm gonna put it in past the vibe check because I gave this book 4.5 stars. The only thing at the end that pissed me off was like a plot twist that I think came out of nowhere and was very unnecessary. I think the author does a good job of balancing like darkness with humor because the main guy character in this book was laugh out loud hilarious. Like, listening to the audiobook is such an experience. You have to. I'm kind of thinking about it more. I liked this book so much more than like these 2, so I'm actually gonna put this up at chef's kiss. I need to be nice, okay? It's chef's kiss, guys. This was a really good book. The little bit at the end annoyed me, but I shouldn't let it like change the ranking too much, so that's where it's going for now. The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo absolutely passed the vibe check. I wouldn't put it in chef's kiss because I think that the ending of this book dragged a little bit. Binged like the first 70% so fast, but the last little bit slowed a teensy little bit. This book was very deeply romantic, I feel, but it just at the end, unfortunately, didn't feel flat to me, but I wanted the romance to keep going up and up and up, and it kind of just like plateaued at one point. So good, but not like phenomenal. Tattooist of Auschwitz. Here's the thing. I am unfortunately going to put this into I'm So Disappointed. Now hear me out, okay? I gave this book 3 stars. It's very popular for just being a very honest telling of someone who survived the Holocaust. So an incredible story. However, I just think the writing style did not gel with me at all. Besides the fact that they were in a terrible situation, I honestly was just so sympathetic towards what they were going through. I didn't feel like I connected to the characters besides that. I think there are many better books talking about the Holocaust than this one, in my opinion. All right, continuing, the next book is Where Good Girls Go to Die. This was forgettable. I enjoyed this book. I read it during my 24-hour reading challenge that I did last August or September, but I couldn't tell you the plot besides the fact that I think he's her brother's best friend or something like that, and he's a tattoo artist, and that's all I remember. So next is Magnolia Parks, and this is an absolute chef's kiss book for me. I need to continue this series so bad. I think that this book is hard to read because it really describes a toxic relationship. Not necessarily like they're bad for each other forever, but maybe it's just not their time. I know why people don't like this book, I can understand it, but for me, this was just really, really good. I love this book. Shiver for me was for the nostalgia alone. This is a book that I used to love as a child, and it's not good, really. Like, objectively, the writing is very, not mid, but it's just like monotone, emotionless, telling you how it is. However, I love this book and I love this story because it's one of my favorite books from my childhood, so I don't care. I gave it 5 stars. Next is When the Moon Hatched, and finally, we're getting a book that is going straight to the top tier. I read this book as one of the last books of the year. It's a very chunky, like 700-page fantasy book, and there are flaws in this book for sure, okay? But overall, this book was so incredible that I'm honestly ignoring the minor flaws that I've seen because I thought it was just amazing. I do think that this book is one that you should go into blind, personally, because I went into it pretty blind, and I feel like I was really immersed in the story ASAP because she has so much very in-depth and detailed world building. Oh, and the romance. Oh my god, the romance. It's so heartbreakingly beautiful. This needs to be injected into my veins. Thank you very much. Next is Love Theoretically. Y'all are gonna hate me for this. You are. It's going in TBH kind of forgettable. I don't remember the plot of this book because it's the exact same premise as the other 2 books that she's written before this. Listen, I like Ellie Hazelwood, I do, but I think that Love Hypothesis, Love on the Brain, and Love Theoretically are all the exact same girl in STEM, feminist, romance. Next is Clockwork Prince, and this for me definitely passed the vibe check. Now, I gave this one 4.5 stars where I gave Clockwork Angel 5 stars. They're both rereads. I really liked both of them, but I just think the first book was a little bit better, which is why I gave this 4.5 stars. However, this is still such a good time. I love Tessa, Will, and Jem. I love them dearly. Next is Wildfire. Passes the vibe check. I like this book a lot. One thing that really stands out to me about Hannah Grace, the author of this book, is she really knows how to write college kids. Like, as a college kid myself, I feel like my age demographic is very well represented in this book. I appreciate that. And I need to read Daydream like ASAP. Next is Saving 6 and Redeeming 6, and these are going straight to the top. These are the other 2 books in the Binding 13 series that I read this year, and they are my absolute favorites of the series. I love them so much. This follows Joey and Aoife, and I've talked about these books so many times on my channel before, so I'm not going to say much, but their story is heartbreaking, high emotions, anger, but also their passionate love for each other. They're just incredible. I actually reread Saving 6 twice this year, so if that doesn't tell you anything, I really, really love this book, and I need to read Redeeming 6 again soon so I can annotate my physical copy because it's just amazing. Next is For the Wolf. Now, this one I gave 5 stars, but I think it's going to go into absolute chef's kiss for me. This was a really, really good book. It's a dark cottagecore Red Riding Hood retelling fantasy book, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. However, I think that there are better 5 stars. Similar to Clockwork Angel, while I do have 5 stars in the top tier, if I had to split up my 5 stars, this would be like on the lower end of the 5 stars. This is getting really meticulous. Spark and the Everflame, I am so disappointed. I'm sorry, you guys are gonna hate me for putting this book so low, but it's the truth. It's predictable. It's kind of boring at some parts. The main character is so annoying. DM is so annoying to read about. I hated being in her head. People say that the rest of this series gets so much better, but I don't really know if I care to read it. This book disappointed me too much to continue. Queen of Shadows. This is one of my rereads this year. In case you're new to my channel and you don't know, one of my favorite series of all time is Throne of Glass. So I did a reread of this book and Air of Fire, which is another book in that series this year, and just rereading them was just such an amazing experience, guys. If you haven't read Throne of Glass ever, do it. Please do it. You are missing out if you haven't read them before. I'm not going to rant too much, but this is a 5, 6, 7 star book. It's so incredible. I'm obsessed. 6 Scorched Roses was an absolute chef's kiss book. This is pretty high for a novella for me, but this is a 4.5 star novella. I think in the vlog that I did, I gave it 4 stars, but I've now bumped it up to a 4.5. This is in the Serpent on the Wings of Night series, and it follows 2 side characters. Now, I actually read this one after I finished Serpent on the Wings of Night, like that duology. I thought it was just really, really sweet. A very deep, emotional, and powerful romance told in only a few short pages. I thought it was just really well executed, so definitely a chef's kiss for me. Obsession. This is a 1-star book, and I want you to burn it. Okay? I'm not gonna rant about this book because I've done that so many times before in different videos, but they are basically romanticizing a criminal in this book that I think should have stayed in jail. Serpent on the Wings of Night, 100% chef's kiss. This is the first book in the series with 6 Scorched Roses. The sequel is down here and kind of forgettable. It seems very far away when they're only like half a star away, but genuinely I did forget a lot about this book, whereas Serpent on the Wings of Night was very memorable for me. I really, really enjoyed this. Spice was good, plot was good. Plot was at the end end absolutely like shocked me. I should have guessed it, but I didn't, so chef's kiss. Broken Whispers, this is going into Burn It. Actually, is it that bad? Maybe it's going into I'm So Disappointed. This was a book that I gave, I think, 2 stars. It's a mafia book in a series of about 200-page books, and everyone raves about them. I read this one and I was like, that's it. Like, it wasn't anything special. I was kind of annoyed at the main characters. I wouldn't say burn it. I'd say put it into I'm So Disappointed. It was not good by any means, but there are other worse books on this list. Air of Fire, this is my other book in the Throne of Glass series that I reread this year. I love Air of Fire, I really do, but I think I never appreciated how much Sarah J. Maas can write a character arc, a character development until I reread this year. The arc that we have our characters go through in this book is so phenomenal that it blew me away once again on the reread. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, for me, passed the vibe check. This book was about 4 stars. It's a really beautiful book about a girl who made a deal with basically the devil, and so it's a very emotional and sad book, kind of historical, half literary, half historical, half romance, things like that. I thought the writing was absolutely gorgeous, so beautiful, so lyrical. I did tear up with this book. The plot twist is emotional for sure, but I think that as far as enjoyment goes, there are other books that I had more fun with this year, which is why it's on the pass the vibe check level. Lotus for me was TBH, kind of forgettable. It was. This is a story about a guy who was kidnapped when he was a kid, and he's just now escaped that, and then he falls in love with his neighbor who was once his childhood friend before he was kidnapped. Definitely a very dark plot, but overall, I think that this book, more than anything, just cringed me out. Something about the relationship, for example, the spice scenes, like I got secondhand embarrassment from some things. I was just like, ugh. So I gave it 3 stars. It was fine, kind of forgettable, verging on I'm disappointed, but I'm not going to put it there yet because it's not as bad as the other ones. Broken Rivalry, this was a burn it book. I can't even tell you why I hated this book so much. It was just awful. It was my only DNF of the year that's on this list, but I got to 60%, so I'm counting it as read. It's a college romance. I hated it. Don't read it. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, this was absolutely chef's kiss. This book is a historical book that tells the story of 2 sisters during World War II. This is an instance where I think that this book is done much better than Tattooist of Auschwitz because I feel like the story was just incredibly well crafted. This book is so emotional, so in-depth, it tears at your heartstrings, and it's written so well. So I really enjoyed this. It's my first Kristen Hanna, and I need to read more by her ASAP. It's so good. Powerful, unfortunately, disappointed me. This is the novella in the Powerless series by Lauren Roberts. I thought it was very mid. I didn't really care for the main character. We're supposed to feel very emotionally connected to her, but unfortunately, throughout book 1 before the end, I just didn't feel very attached to her. And so when I read the novella, the same thing happened, and I was just like, I'm sorry, but like, I'm not that connected to you, if that makes sense. This Is How You Lose the Time War was very forgettable for me. This was my first book that I've ever annotated, which is why I made an entire vlog for it. And while I enjoyed annotating it, unfortunately the plot was very very boring. The writing style was such a way that I was very bored by it. It was written in letters, the entire thing, and I just really didn't feel connected to the characters. So, kind of forgettable, kind of meh. Now, on the flip side, Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, absolute chef's kiss. This is my first Abby Jimenez book that I've ever read. I read it last year, and I read this book in the span of like a day, I think. So good, so digestible, so easy to binge through. The romance was just so beautiful. I thought it was sweet. Abby Jimenez, I love her. I don't know how to explain it, but her romance books are just written differently than other people's. And this book is the first in 3 interconnected standalones that I read this year and loved. I've been talking forever. I need a break. Alright, not too many more to go. Next, I have the next book in that Peter Pan retelling, and this is going into I'm So Disappointed again, but just to reiterate, again, I'm more disappointed in myself. The Six Deaths of the Saint, this is absolute chef's kiss book for me. This is a 35-page novella where it switches in between first, second, and third point of view, and I don't remember much of the plot, to be honest. I just remember crying, number 1. And I also remember that this was just so well written. Like the author, Alexi Harrow, I need to read more by her because it was absolutely stunning how she wrote and weaved such an incredible story in such a short amount of pages. So 5 stars, absolute chef's kiss. It was incredible. Next is The Ever King, and TBH, this is kind of forgettable. I remember it was a pirate romance between like a princess and a pirate who kidnapped her or something like that, I want to say. It was enjoyable for the most part, and I wanted to give it a 4-star, but towards the end I got a little secondhand embarrassment, cringed out, annoyed at the plot, so I gave it 3 stars in the end. Again, not a bad book, but kind of forgettable. Manacled. Oh goodness, this is going straight to the top, my friends. In fact, I'm gonna put this at the very, very tippity top because this was my favorite book of the entire year. I don't care what you say, this Draco and Hermione fanfiction changed my life. I'm not gonna rant because I talked about it in my last video, so go watch that if you haven't already. But this book, watch your trigger warnings please, but it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Next is The 7-Year Slip, and you're gonna hate me for this. You are, but I'm putting this in I'm So Disappointed. Here's the thing. It was a decent book. I gave it 3 stars, and I did listen to it in audiobook format while driving, so maybe that was like part of the problem why I didn't connect to this as much as I really felt like I should have, but everyone raves about this book, and honestly, I did not feel the connection as much as I wanted to. 6 of Crows is an absolute chef's kiss. This book is so good. It follows 6 people who live in this fictional town called Ketterdam, and they are all tasked to group together and go on this incredible heist. The emotion in this book, the found family, the character developments and relationships are so good. I love her characters. They're so detailed and they have their flaws for sure, but I love them. Absolute chef's kiss. Paladin's Grace for me was TBH kind of forgettable. This was a book about a romance between a paladin or like a soldier and a perfume maker. It was fine, but I think I remember getting a secondhand embarrassment for their spicy scenes once again, similar to Lotus, and I don't remember the plot at all, so you know, kind of forgettable. Reckless for me. You guys don't like this book, I know you don't, but I'm gonna put this in absolute chef's kiss. This is the second book in the Powerless series, and everyone prefers book 1, which I understand because book 1 is more like plot heavy and intense because it's another trials fantasy book. In fact, it's right here, so I'm just gonna put book 1 in past the vibe check. I thought it was a really fun read, very entertaining, but I also thought it was nothing new. We've seen this before, this like Hunger Games kind of retelling, enemies to lovers, fantasy romance with like the royal prince and the girl from the slums. Like, it's been done before, but I think that the second book was better because it was different. I thought that they had a lot of good connection and good dialogue in the second book, which is why I put it in chef's kiss. I gave it 4.5 stars. I cried in that book, wildly enough. First book was still good, second book was better, and then the novella Powerful was like a 3-star. Only a few more left. Next we have Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This is also in the same series as Part of Your World, and I'm obsessed with this book. This might be my favorite from the series actually because of the mental health rep. As a girly with anxiety, I really appreciated how much our guy character in this book had anxiety and talked about it in this book. And actually I think it's also important to have guys with mental health because too often I think it's the girl characters who have like anxiety or depression or are too emotional, quote unquote. So I think it's really nice to have a male character have those same feelings of anxiety and mental health. Really good. Crooked Kingdom is the second book in the 6 of Crows duology. Once again, absolute chef's kiss for me. Once again, just surprised me how well Lee can write. How many times do I have to say this? She is incredible. Her plots, like I think that I'm understanding where she's going with something, and then she gives us a plot twist, or she surprises us with something new. And our main character, Kaz, is always planning ahead. Everything ties in at the end. Everything clicks. It all makes sense. It's just a satisfying book to read in that way. Again, emotional, character development, character relationships, found family, yes, but also plot was plotting in this book, okay? Really awesome. Then I read the second book in the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. I have to put this one in past the vibe check for me. I actually read this book earlier in the year, but then I paused and like soft DNF'd it and picked it back up in like August-ish. At least the first book in the series was a 5-star. I really enjoyed it. I love how Sarah J. Maas writes in general, but I think that going into this book, I was kind of disappointed by how much plot was happening that I just simply didn't care about. There's a huge cast of characters and a lot of them were just on little side quests that I genuinely just like, I didn't care, you know? I feel like this book was kind of biting off more than it could chew. I was really gonna give it like 3.5 stars for a while there, but the last plot is at the very like last page absolutely like shocked me. Jaw dropped. So I gave it 4 stars for that last plot twist alone, which is why it's in the past the vibe check tier. Then I have Daisy Hates. This is the second book in the Magnolia Parks series up here. This book I actually preferred more than Magnolia Parks. It's very similar. It follows the same timeline, but it follows the different characters during that same timeline. And I prefer Daisy to Magnolia. They were like rated the same, but I think I was obsessed more with Daisy and Julian. Julian's her brother, and I love Julian. I need to see more of Julian in the next couple of books. Next is Heartless Hunter, and here's the thing. This is going to be so controversial. I'm putting this book in I'm So Disappointed. Here's the thing. Hear me out, okay? I gave this book 4 stars. I Did not hate this book at all. 4 stars, okay? However, this book I was expecting to be like a 5 out of 5 star read. Everyone hyped it up so much on the internet. Everyone loves this enemies to lovers about a witch and a witch hunter. And honestly, I thought that the romance was, not bad. But because people were hyping it up so much, I expected so much from it. And reading it, I was unfortunately like kind of mid about what happened. It is going in the second to lowest category here. I'm so disappointed. Don't kill me, okay? I'm telling my truth. The Never King is going on I'm So Disappointed again. It's in that same series with these other 2. Next is Why Explain the Holocaust, and this definitely passed the vibe check. This is my only nonfiction from the year. This is a nonfiction book that I read for my English class, but I actually really enjoyed it. It tells a lot of background about the Holocaust and a lot of facts that I just didn't know before I read the book. I've read a lot of books about the Holocaust. Obviously, there are a couple in this video, but this book informed me of a lot of other smaller just statistics and side things they don't really talk about in history books that I thought was really, really interesting. So I enjoyed this. I think that it's a really good nonfiction if you want to read more about the Holocaust. Haunting Adeline was my #1 worst book of the year. I hated it, gave it 1 star, and I'm not going to rant about it now, but if you want to hear my full rant, watch my last video. I talked about it there. Also, I made a vlog for this book. It is very well documented on the internet what my thoughts are for this book are, but it's just awful. My December Darling honestly passed the vibe check. It honestly should go into kind of forgettable because I gave this 3.5 stars, whereas I gave Holiday Romance 4 stars, but My December Darling I think was genuinely like kind of really good. Hello? Like in retrospect, I honestly want to rate this one higher than Holiday Romance because I enjoyed it more. It was shorter and it's just a really sweet, emotional, guy falls first holiday romance. It's just really enjoyable. I really liked it. My Vicious Darling, 1 more in that Peter Pan series that I put there and I'm So Disappointed. Next we have The Risk, which is the first book in the Mind series by S.T. Abbey. This is going into Absolute Chef's Kiss, just like the other 2 were. Then I have The Right Move by Liz Tomford. This one definitely passed the vibe check. This one was so much fun. It's a romance between a basketball player named Ryan Shea, who is the brother of the main girl character in book 1 in the series, and then her best friend. I think that they were very communicative and very aware of their emotions in this book, and I've given the first 2 books 4 and 4.5 stars respectively, so obviously they're really, really good. We're getting to the point now where like my thing is so zoomed out because there's so many rows here. I only have a couple more books left, however. The next one is Abby Jimenez's Just for the Summer, and this one goes into Absolute Chef's Kiss, just like her other 2 books. This is the last one in her 3 books that are like interconnected, and it was so, so good. Next is Swift and Saddled, which is the second book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, which is the same one that has the Undusted in it. This one goes into kind of forgettable. TBH. It was a decent book for sure. However, I feel like it was just a step down from book 1. I didn't feel as connected to the characters, so I gave it I think like 3 stars, whereas the first book was a 4 star. Sea of Ruin for me, I don't care what you say. Inject this book into my veins. Yeah, it's a love triangle, kind of. It's a reread for me. I read this book last year and I had to reread it this year because it's just so good. I've explained this plot of this book before, so I don't really want to get into it right now, but all I want to say is the fast-pacedness of this book, that every chapter there's something happening, it's a new twist and turn, like it's just so sucks you in and just like takes you with it. So underrated. Definitely watch triggers for this book because it is very like dark, very intense, I feel, but I always read this book when I want to get out of a slump because it just picks me right up. I don't care if it's controversial, it's going up there in that top spot. Next is Reaper, which is the same series as Crow, and this one is going to go into kind of forgettable, just like Crow was. They're both mafia books. They were enjoyable for sure, but I couldn't tell you the plot, and honestly, like, it's been done before. You know, it's nothing original. I have King of Libertines here, which is also TBH kind of forgettable. I gave this book 4 stars. It's the novella that comes after Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin, but I don't remember anything that happened in that little novella, so I couldn't tell you like if it was good or not. I just remember thinking that was really enjoyable because I liked the characters. And then the last book that I want to talk about is Love of My Afterlife. I'm going back and forth between Past the Vibe Check and kind of forgettable. This book was not forgettable in the slightest, and my voice is getting so squeaky because I've been talking for an hour, so I'm sorry, but I'm torn. I'm gonna put it in Past the Vibe Check, but that is a very generous placement, okay? Because I felt like this book was very cringe. I wouldn't say I'm very disappointed by it. It's not nostalgic and it's not forgettable, so it has to go in the Past the Vibe Check tier for me, but it definitely was not my favorite of the year. It was like a 3.5 star book. So not bad, I recommend it, But for me, it's going in the middle. But that, my friends, is the final tier. Like I said, I've been talking for over an hour, so my voice is like kind of going hoarse, to be honest. But I think that this is a good placement. I'm not going to move anything else around. I want to stay firm with these choices. Hello, Editing Sophie here. I just wanted to pop in and ask for your help. I want to do a reading vlog in the new year where I read your favorite books from 2024, or my subscribers' favorite books. So if you could tell me in the comments below what your best book of the year was, or best books, I'd love to hear your opinions so I can make that vlog. So comment down below, just make 1 or 2 books you read this year that you loved. I'd really appreciate it, and look out for that vlog coming very soon. Again, if you want to see my bullet journal video that I posted on my other channel where I ranked everything from worst to best, like in order, you can watch that one as well. I have it linked down below. Subscribe because I post reading videos every single Thursday. I love you. Have an amazing day, and I will see you next week.